I want you to picture a feedback loop. Usually we talk about this in, like, audio engineering.
Right. A microphone gets too close to a speaker.
Exactly. And the sound just amplifies itself. It screeches, it gets louder and louder until, it blows the equipment.
It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The input becomes the output, which then becomes more input.
Right. So now, imagine that loop is an audio. Imagine it's delusion. You take one person with this quiet, simmering messiah complex, and you introduce them to another person with this just desperate, chaotic need for significance, and they get close.
The signal amplifies.
The signal amplifies. The noise becomes the theology and the blown equipment.
5 dead bodies, a trail of fraud that goes across 3 states, and a legal saga that, it didn't actually wrap up until July of 2025.
This is the deep dive. And today, we are opening up the files on the case of the so-called Doomsday Mom and Doomsday Prophet, Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. I'm looking at the stack of documents we've pulled for this. We've got court transcripts from the 2023, 2024, and the recent 2025 Arizona trials, plus all these investigation files into their cult-like beliefs. And I have to say, even for us, this is heavy.
It is. And the challenge, I think, with the Vallow Daybell case is that the headlines are so loud, zombies, portals, apocalypse, that they actually kind of drown out the mechanics of the crime. It's easy to look at them as just cartoons or monsters.
Yeah, a simple monster.
But our mission today is to really pull back the curtain and look at the system they built.
Right. Because monsters are boring. Systems are terrifying. We need to understand how a beauty queen from Texas and a gravedigger from Utah constructed an entire reality where murdering their own children wasn't just acceptable. It was a spiritual necessity. It was a requirement for their salvation.
And we have a unique opportunity here because we finally have the complete picture. For a long, long time, there were open questions. But with Lori's conviction in those Arizona trials just last year in July 2025, that legal door is finally shut.
It's done.
It's done. We can now look at the entire timeline from that first meeting to the final sentencing and trace that feedback loop all the way to the end.
Okay, so let's establish the scope before we jump in. We're talking about the deaths of Charles Vallow, who was Lori's 4th husband.
Tylee Ryan, her 16-year-old daughter, J.J. Vallow, her 7-year-old adopted son.
Tammy Daybell, who was Chad's wife of nearly 30 years. And Alex Cox, Lori's brother, the man who was essentially the it man of the group.
And don't forget the attempted murder of Brendan Boudreaux.
Right. It is a sprawling tragedy.
It really is. But to understand how it ends, we have to understand who these people were before their worlds, ended. We need to go back to the convergence.
Let's start with Chad Daybell. Because on paper, if you looked at his life in, say, 2014, he looks like the most boring man in America.
He really, really does. He grew up in Springville, Utah, very mainstream Mormon family. He went to BYU, Brigham Young University, studied journalism. He wasn't some kind of outcast. He was inside the fold.
Completely.
But his career path took a turn that I think is, well, it's psychologically significant. He became a cemetery sexton.
A sexton, which is a very polite way of saying he dug graves.
He dug graves. He maintained the grounds. He was surrounded by death physically every single day of his working life.
And he didn't just do the job, did he? He sort of internalized it.
Oh, completely. He wrote a nonfiction book called 1 Foot in the Grave.
Subtle title.
Right. But in that book, he talks about the thinness of the veil between the living and the dead in a cemetery. He starts claiming that he has these gifts. He's seeing spirits. He's feeling vibrations.
And this is a common thing we see in these types of cases, right? The special knowledge trap. It starts with something subjective. I feel a presence.
And you can't disprove a feeling.
You can't. And Chad had aspirations beyond just digging graves. He wanted to be a leader, an author. He started self-publishing fiction.
Books like The Great Gathering and The Times of Turmoil. These are apocalyptic novels. And they were aimed specifically at a very, very niche Mormon audience, the preppers.
The people stocking up on food storage, buying ammo, basically waiting for society to collapse.
Correct. And Chad found a formula that really worked for him. He claimed he had near-death experiences, NDEs. He said he had actually died, crossed over, and been sent back with a mission.
And he claimed the veil was torn for him.
Right, which allowed information to be downloaded, that was his word, directly into his brain.
Downloaded. I've always found that word choice so interesting. It sounds so technical.
Yeah.
So sterile. Like he's just a computer receiving updates from the mothership.
But it's a power move. I mean, if you tell people, I have a theory about the end of the world, they can debate you. If you say, "Heaven downloaded this file into my brain, you are beyond reproach." And he started blurring those lines. He would tell his fans at these preparedness conferences that his fiction books—
They weren't really fiction.
not really, they were prophecy, just disguised as fiction to get past the censors.
That is such a dangerous pivot, because now you're not just an author, you're a prophet.
A prophet without a church. And he was pinpointing dates. He was obsessed with July 2020 as the time when the tribulations would begin.
But the thing about Chad, from all accounts, is that he was drab. He was quiet. He didn't have that big, booming charisma to lead a mass movement.
No, he was a prophet waiting for a spark. He had the ideas, but not the energy.
Enter Lori Vallow. If Chad is the beige wallpaper of radicalization, Lori is the neon sign.
What a perfect way to put it. Lori Vallow, born Lori Cox, was the complete opposite energy. She thrived on attention. She was a hairdresser, super high energy, very, very focused on appearance. She competed in the Mrs. Texas beauty pageant.
He was reading the notes on this. She was even on Wheel of Fortune.
She was. And there's footage of her. You can find it. She's smiling, clapping. On the surface, she is the all-American mom. But if you actually look at her history, it is chaos.
Pure chaos.
By the time she meets Chad, she is already on her 4th marriage.
And these weren't just, we drifted apart divorces.
No, not at all. Her marital history is a wreck. Her relationship with Joseph Ryan, who is Tylee's father, was incredibly volatile. There were custody battles, horrible accusations of abuse. Her 3rd husband died of a heart attack.
Then she marries Charles Vallow, a successful businessman.
Right. And they adopt J.J., who is actually her grandnephew. And it's important to note, J.J. has autism.
So she's living in Arizona. She has a very complicated family situation, a special needs child, a history of trauma, and, frankly, instability. And then around 2015, she starts looking for answers.
She starts drifting away from mainstream LDS teachings and just dives headfirst into the fringe. She's listening to podcasts. She's reading all these books about NDEs.
Just like Chad.
Just like Chad. She becomes obsessed with this idea that the end is coming and that the mainstream church isn't telling people the real truth. She is essentially radicalizing herself via headphones.
She's the demand. Chad is the supply.
Perfectly put. She's looking for a prophet to tell her she's special. And Chad is looking for a disciple to tell him he's powerful.
And the collision happens in 2018. St. George, Utah. A conference called Preparing a People.
Yeah, Preparing a People was this organization that hosted events for doomsday preppers. Chad was a speaker, Lori attended, and witnesses say the connection was just instantaneous. They met and they talked for hours.
And Chad drops a line on her that is, it's the ultimate pickup line for a religious extremist.
Oh, it really is. He tells her almost immediately that they have been married in multiple past lives.
Hey, nice to meet you. By the way, we've been married for 2,000 years.
And he got specific. He told her he was James the Lesson Apostle of Jesus and she was Elena. He told her they had been sealed together for eternity.
Now, for the listener who might not know, in Mormon theology, being sealed means your marriage lasts forever. But you can only be sealed to one person at a time, usually.
Right. And Chad is basically telling her the rules of earth don't apply to us. We are eternal beings who have finally found each other again.
And the hook is set. But there's a problem, a logistical problem, a very human problem.
2 of them, actually. Lori is married to Charles. Chad is married to Tammy.
Right. In a normal world, that's an affair. You get a divorce or you break it off.
But in the world they were building, divorce is just, it's too mundane. They needed a cosmic reason to be together, so they started communicating constantly. While Charles was out of town on business, Lori would hold these gatherings at her house. Chad would come down from Idaho.
And they were engaging in what they called spiritual work.
Which was really just emotional and sexual bonding wrapped up in this religious language.
And this is where that feedback loop starts screaming.
Yeah.
Because they didn't just say, we want to sleep together.
Yeah.
They built an entire theology to justify it. So let's move into part 2 and actually unpack this theology of doom. Because when I read the source material on their zombie doctrine, my first reaction was just, there is no way functional adults actually believe this.
It is the most dangerous concept in this entire case. It is, without a doubt, the mechanism of murder. But you have to understand it step by step. It starts with something they called the light and dark scale.
They were rating people, like a credit score for your soul.
That's exactly what it was. Chad claimed he could look at a person, or even just a photo of a person, and see their energy. He would assign them a score. If you were light, you were good. You were one of the 144,000 destined to be saved in the second coming.
And if you were dark?
If you were dark, you had some level of corruption. And it wasn't just dark, it was specific. You could be a 4.2 dark or a 2 light.
So it sounded scientific.
It did. But here's the trick. The scores could change. If you question Chad, your score dropped. If you got in Lori's way, you went dark real fast.
So it's a control mechanism. Do what I say or you're evil.
It's a standard cult tactic. But they took it a step further, a giant leap further. They introduced the concept of zombies.
Okay, define that for us, because we need to be very clear. They aren't talking about Night of the Living Dead.
No, not at all. In their theology, a zombie was a person whose original human soul had been pushed out of their body. That good soul was now trapped in limbo, and in its place, a dark spirit, a demon, had taken physical possession of the body.
So if I'm Charles Vallow and I'm arguing with Lori about money or her beliefs, to Lori, I'm not really Charles anymore.
You're not. You are a shell. You're a meat suit inhabited by a demon. They even gave the demons names. They claimed Charles was possessed by a spirit named Ned Schneider.
Ned Schneider. It's so banal. It sounds like an accountant from a sitcom.
It's absurd, but the consequence was absolutely lethal because, and this is the crucial part, they believed the only way to free the original good soul from limbo was to kill the physical body.
Let that just sink in for a minute. They reframed murder as an act of mercy. They weren't killing Charles.
They were killing Ned to save Charles.
Wow. It completely short-circuited their morality. If you believe your child is a zombie, then taking care of them suddenly means eliminating the body. They dehumanize their own family members.
Once you slap that zombie label on someone, they are no longer a person. They are an obstacle, an inconvenience.
And they believed they had the divine authority to do this because they were, what, gods?
Pretty much, yeah. They believed in multiple probations. The idea that you live many lives to test your faithfulness. Chad and Lori believed they had passed all the tests. They were exalted. Lori was an exalted goddess.
And Chad.
Chad was the Holy Ghost in some versions, or at least a prophet on the same level as Jesus. They believed they were leading the 144,000 to the second coming in Rexburg, Idaho.
But this wasn't just the two of them in a vacuum, though. They had a little ecosystem, an echo chamber.
They did. They had a small circle of women, Melanie Gibb, Zulema Pastines, who reinforced all of this. They would do these castings over Zoom.
Castings? What does that mean?
It was their version of spiritual warfare. They would get on a conference call, they would chant, and they would fire portals of energy at people they deemed dark. They believed they were causing physical pain to their enemies from hundreds of miles away.
It sounds like a Dungeons & Dragons game that they mistook for reality.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of portals, Chad claimed he could physically or spiritually teleport.
He called it portaling.
Right. He claimed he could travel spiritually to Lori's bedroom to be with her, or go to the temple without leaving his house. It sounds ridiculous to us, but think about the function. It allowed them to feel this deep, secret connection even when they were apart. It deepened the shared delusion.
So we have the motive. They want to be together and they want money to fund their mission. We have the method. The zombie doctrine allows them to kill without guilt. And we have the opportunity, this little ecosystem that won't challenge them.
And now we see the first domino fall.
Charles Vallow.
Charles was the canary in the coal mine. He was the first person to look at Lori and say, something is desperately wrong here. In early 2019, he files for divorce. And if you read the court documents from that filing, I mean, the hair just stands up on the back of your neck.
He laid it all out.
He did. He told the court, she threatens to murder me. She says she's a god. She says I'm a dark spirit named Ned. He was terrified. He tried to get a protective order. There's body cam footage of him talking to police, pleading with them to take her for a mental health evaluation. He says, flat out, she's lost her reality. She's going to kill me.
And the police, they just treated it as a domestic dispute.
Pretty much. She says, you took her purse. You say she's crazy. They didn't see the depth of the danger. And meanwhile, Lori is draining their accounts. She took $35,000 from his business account. She stole his truck. She was trying to provoke him into a confrontation.
But Charles made one move, one single move, that completely changed the trajectory of the investigation later on.
He did. He had $1 million life insurance policy. Lori was the beneficiary. But shortly before he died, Charles quietly changed the beneficiary to his sister, Kay Woodcock.
And he didn't tell Lori.
No. He knew if anything happened to him, Lori would use that money to fund this insanity. He wanted to make sure J.J. was taken care of. That decision likely saved the money, but it almost certainly sealed his fate. Lori didn't know the money was gone. She thought Charles was worth $1 million dead.
So, July 11, 2019, Chandler, Arizona. The setup.
Charles goes to the house to pick up J.J. for school. He enters the home. Lori's there. Tylee is there. And Alex Cox is there.
We need to talk about Alex Cox. We mentioned him in the intro, but who is he really in this story?
Alex is Lori's older brother. But in this narrative, he is a weapon. He was completely 100% subservient to Lori and Chad. Chad gave him a patriarchal blessing, a specific religious ritual, and called him a warrior who would protect the family.
So Alex believed this was his divine duty.
He believed killing zombies was his calling from God. He was their enforcer.
So Charles walks in. There's an argument.
According to the story they told police, Charles got angry and hit Alex with a baseball bat. Alex then shot Charles twice in the chest in self-defense.
But the forensics didn't match that story at all, did they?
Not even close. The evidence suggested Charles was shot while he was on the ground, or at least falling. The trajectory was all wrong. And Tylee was there. She came out of her room with a bat, supposedly to protect her mom. But then Alex and Lori told her to go outside.
I just can't imagine being a 16-year-old girl. Your stepfather is shot dead by your uncle in your living room, and your mother's reaction is, what?
This is the detail that just breaks you. Charles is dead on the floor. First responders are on their way. Lori takes J.J. and drives to Burger King to get him a meal.
Burger King.
Then she goes to Walgreens to buy flip-flops.
Flip-flops, I mean.
She was captured on the store's CCTV. She looked completely unbothered. She wasn't a grieving widow. She was a woman running errands. When police interviewed her, she was smiling, chatting, playing the damsel in distress.
And we found out later about the text messages. The Nephi reference.
Right. Days before the murder, Lori texted Alex, "Be like Nephi." Now, for those who don't know the Book of Mormon, Nephi is a prophet who is commanded by God to kill a wicked man named Laban to get some sacred records.
And Nephi hesitates.
He does. But the Spirit tells him, it is better that one man should perish than that a nation should dwindle and perish in unbelief.
So she gave him a scriptural license to kill. She was telling him, God is commanding this, don't hesitate.
Exactly. And with Charles dead, the dark spirit Ned was gone. The obstacle was removed. They expected that $1 million life insurance payout within days.
But the money didn't come.
No. The insurance company told Lori, you are not the beneficiary. She was furious. There are texts where she's just scrambling, trying to find out where the money went, but without that cash, their plans were stalled. They needed to regroup.
And Chad, the voice, tells him to come to Zion.
He tells them to move to Rexburg, Idaho. It's a small college town, extremely LDS. Chad lived just outside of town, so in late August 2019, Lori, Alex, Tylee, and J.J. pack everything up and move north.
And this is where the story shifts from the, suspicious death of a spouse to just absolute horror movie. Because they arrive in Rexburg, and the children, they just start to evaporate.
It happens so fast. Tylee was last seen on September 8th, 2019. We have photos of her at Yellowstone National Park with the family. She looks, resigned. She's holding J.J. She doesn't look happy. That is the last proof of life we have for Tylee Ryan.
And the very next morning, September 9th, we get the infamous raccoon text.
This is one of those pieces of evidence that Chad probably thought was incredibly clever, but it was just a smoking gun.
Yeah.
He texts his wife, Tammy, who is still alive at this point, remember?
Right.
And he says, well, I've had an interesting morning. I felt guided by the spirit to go out to the backyard, and I saw a large raccoon. I shot it and buried it in our pet cemetery.
Why is that weird? I mean, it's rural Idaho. People shoot varmints.
For 3 reasons. 1, raccoons are nocturnal. Seeing a large one in the middle of the morning it's rare.
Okay.
2, Chad had never buried a raccoon before. He usually just disposed of them out in the field. And 3, the GPS data from Alex Cox's phone places him in Chad's backyard at the exact time Chad is supposedly burying the raccoon.
So burying the raccoon was code for burying Tylee.
That's the conclusion the jury reached. They were digging a grave for a 16-year-old girl while texting the wife about a pest. The level of coldness is just staggering.
And what about J.J.?
J.J. survived a few weeks longer, but the rhetoric against him was really ramping up. Lori was telling her friends, J.J. has become a zombie. He's climbing the walls. He knocked over a picture of Jesus. She was building the case for his removal.
She was setting the stage. The boy you knew is gone. He's been replaced.
Exactly. And on September 22nd, late at night, a neighbor sees Alex Cox carrying J.J., who appears to be asleep, into the apartment. That is the last time anyone other than Lori and Alex sees J.J. alive.
And the next day, the lies start.
Oh, immediately. Lori tells her friends and neighbors that Alex took him to live with his grandmother, Kay. She calls his school and tells them she's going to homeschool him. But then she does something that, just practically speaking, is a massive error.
A service dog.
She lists JJ's service dog, Bailey, for sale.
You don't sell a service dog if the autistic child who needs that dog is still there. That dog is their lifeline.
Exactly. The trainer who took the dog back said Lori seemed totally indifferent. She didn't care. The dog was just another loose end to tie up.
So by the beginning of October 2019, both children are dead, buried in Chad's backyard. But nobody knows this yet. To the outside world, Lori is just a widow who moved to Idaho.
Right. But Chad still have a wife. Tammy Daybell is still alive. And they need her gone.
They need her gone for two reasons. One, they want to be married. Two, they desperately need money. Charles's money didn't come through, but Tammy had a life insurance policy.
Several, in fact, totaling over $400,000.
It's so cold. They didn't just wait for her to die, they actively hunted her.
They did. There was a dress rehearsal. 10 days before she died, Tammy came home and saw a man in a ski mask in her driveway. He pointed what looked like a gun at her and pulled the trigger. It just clicked. It didn't fire.
And she posted about it on Facebook.
Yeah, she posted that a prankster had tried to scare her with a paintball gun.
She thought it was a prank.
She was an innocent woman. She couldn't conceive that her own husband had sent an assassin for her. Prosecutors believe it was Alex Cox and his AR-15 jammed.
But they didn't miss the second time.
No. On October 19th, Tammy goes to bed. Chad claims she was coughing during the night. The next morning, he says he woke up and she was dead, frozen stiff on the side of the bed.
And he declined an autopsy.
Immediately, he moved very, very fast. He called the coroner and said she was sick, she just passed away in her sleep. In some of these rural counties, sometimes that flies. The coroner ruled it natural causes. They had her embalmed and buried within days.
And Chad's demeanor at the funeral.
Witnesses said it was chilling. He spoke about her like she was a burden. He said she was lazy and depressed. People who were there said he tried to squeeze out some fake tears, but they noticed his eyes were completely dry. And he was checking his watch.
He was checking his watch because he had a plane to catch.
He had a wedding to get to. 2 weeks. That is the timeline. 2 weeks after his wife of 30 years dies suddenly in her sleep, Chad Daybell is on a beach in Hawaii marrying Lori Vallow.
And we've all seen the photos. The Lees, the ukulele player, the dancing on the beach. Lori is wearing a wedding ring she bought on Amazon before Tammy was even dead.
She bought it using Charles Vallow's Amazon account, by the way. I mean, the layers of disrespect are just bottomless.
So there they are, in paradise. The kids are safe and happy, which is their code for dead. The inconvenient spouses are dead. The life insurance money is, they assume, coming in. They think they've won. They think they are the gods of the earth.
But they forgot one thing.
They forgot Kay Woodcock.
The sister. The grandmother.
Yeah. Kay hadn't spoken to J.J. in months. Lori was dodging her calls, making up excuses, and Kay had this gut feeling that something was terribly, terribly wrong. So she called the Rexburg Police Department and requested a welfare check.
And that one phone call is the pin that pops the entire balloon.
November 26, 2019, police knock on Lori's door in Rexburg. They ask, "Where's J.J.?"
And Lori lies.
She lies. She says, "Oh, he's with my friend Melanie Gibb down in Arizona."
A verifiable lie. A stupid lie.
A really stupid lie. Because the police call Melanie. And this is a pivotal moment. Melanie Gibb was part of that ecosystem. She believed the zombie stuff, the castings, all of it. But when the police called, and then Lori called her, begging her to lie for her, Melanie cracked. She realized, I'm not covering for a missing child. She told the police, he's not here. I haven't seen him in months.
And when the police go back to the townhouse,
The birds had flown. Chad and Lori were gone. They packed a bag and ran back to Hawaii. But they left something behind.
the storage unit,
The storage unit. They had rented one in Rexburg. And the police got a warrant. When they opened that door, the happy family facade just collapsed. They found JJ's toys, his scooter, his winter clothes, Tylee's photos, her bike.
a mother does not leave her 7-year-old's winter coat in a storage unit in Idaho in late November if that child is with her in sunny Arizona.
No, that was the moment investigators knew. This isn't a custody dispute. These children are probably not alive.
But even then, they didn't have bodies. They just had missing kids. And then another domino falls. Alex Cox dies.
The timing is just... It's almost comical in its convenience if it weren't so tragic.
In December 2019, police notify the Daybells that they're going to exhume Tammy Daybell's body because the natural causes story just smells fishy.
The very next day.
Alex Cox, the hitman, the warrior, is found dead in his bathroom in Arizona.
Did he kill himself? Was he killed? What happened? The autopsy said natural causes. A pulmonary blood clot, a PE, But in the context of this case, it feels incredibly convenient. He took all those secrets to the grave. He was the only one who could directly implicate Chad and Lori in the actual violence at that point.
The trigger man is gone.
He's gone. So Alex is dead. Chad and Lori are arrested in Hawaii in early 2020 on desertion and contempt charges. But we still don't have the kids. We have to fast forward to June of 2020. How did they finally find them?
It was modern technology. They had Alex Cox's cell phone data. The FBI analyzed the GPS pings from those key dates in September, and they found two distinct clusters of activity in Chad Daybell's backyard.
Let me guess. One on September 9th, the Raccoon Day.
And one on September 23rd, the day after J.J. was last seen.
So the police show up with shovels.
June 9, 2020, they execute the search warrant, and Chad is there. He's sitting in his car in the driveway just watching them dig.
And they find Tylee first.
They found what was left of her in that pet cemetery area, and I have to be graphic here because it really speaks to the level of hatred involved. Her body had been burned. It had been dismembered with a shovel or a pickaxe. It was just a mass of unrecognizable tissue and bone fragments.
Awful. And J.J.
They kept digging. Near a pond on the property, they found a small, round shape wrapped in black plastic and duct tape. It was J.J. He was still in his red pajamas. He had been suffocated with a plastic bag over his head and his arms and legs bound with layers and layers of duct tape.
The contrast is just sickening. Tylee was destroyed, obliterated. J.J. was preserved, but discarded like trash.
And as they were uncovering J.J., Chad Daybell saw what was happening. He started his engine and just floored it.
He tried to run.
He tried to speed away from his own house. Police chased him down and arrested him a mile down the road. The prophet wasn't waiting for a chariot of fire to save him. He was trying to outrun a Ford Explorer.
So the bodies are found. The delusions collide with reality. But the legal battle. This was a marathon. We have to talk about the trials because they happened in waves.
They did. First you have the Idaho trials, and Lori went first in 2023.
And the defense. I mean, what could they even say at that point?
They tried to paint her as a victim of Chad, the cult mom who was brainwashed and manipulated, but the prosecution had receipts. They had the texts, they had the GPS data, and they had the hair.
The hair on the tape.
A single strand of Lori's hair was found on the duct tape that was wrapped around JJ's body.
That is the physical link. You cannot explain that away with portals or zombies.
No. She was found guilty on all counts, murder, conspiracy to commit murder. But her sentencing statement, this is where we see that feedback loop was still running in her head.
She stood up in court and gave a speech.
She did. She said, "Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me." She claimed she had visited the spirit world and had spoken to Tylee and J.J. She said they were happy and extremely busy.
And she told the judge.
She told the judge no one was murdered.
No one was murdered. She's looking at the photos of her children buried in a pet cemetery and saying that.
It proves she never left the delusion. She created a reality where she is the hero, and she absolutely refuses to leave it. She got life in prison without parole.
And came Chad's turn in 2024.
Chad's trial was different. His lawyer tried to throw Lori and Alex completely under the bus. She was the siren. She was the Black Widow. She lured this simple author into a web of lust and violence.
Did the jury buy that?
Not for a second. The prosecution showed that Chad was the architect. He wrote the scriptures. He assigned the zombie scores. He was the one who Googled SSW wind, south-southwest wind, to check the wind direction before he burned Tylee's body in his fire pit.
That's such a practical detail. A prophet doesn't need to Google the wind direction. A criminal trying to hide the smoke from a burning body does.
Exactly. He was found guilty, and unlike Lori, he was sentenced to death.
But the story didn't end there. And this is the part that we really need to unpack, because it just happened. July 2025, the Arizona trials. Lori had to go back and face charges for Charles Vallow's murder and the attempt on Brandon Boudreaux.
And it was a spectacle. Lori fired her legal team. She decided to represent herself. She went pro se.
Which, in a murder trial, is usually considered legal suicide.
It was a disaster. But it was a fascinating disaster because we got to see Lori completely unfiltered. In the Charles Vallow case, she didn't know how to run a trial. She kept using the phrase, "the evidence will show," in her opening statement, which is standard.
But then she never presented any evidence.
She never presented any evidence. She didn't call a single witness. She didn't testify herself. She just sat there. But the cross-examination, that was where it got personal. She had to cross-examine the woman that Charles had been dating while they were separated.
Wait, Lori is cross-examining her dead husband's new girlfriend.
Yes. And she wasn't asking about the murder. She was asking these snide, petty questions about dating a married man. It showed that she wasn't fighting a legal battle. She was fighting a personal grudge.
And the jury, they must have just been baffled.
They were seeing the raw narcissism up close. There was no prophet veil anymore, just a vindictive, controlling woman. They convicted her of conspiracy to murder Charles.
Then, the Brendan Boudreaux trial, the attempted murder.
This was the final act, and Lori clearly realized things weren't going her way, so she started pulling stunts. One day, she shows up to court in a wheelchair.
A wheelchair. Was she actually sick?
She claimed she was infirm. But outside of court, jail staff reported she was walking around just fine. It was theater. She was trying to garner sympathy. Look at me, a frail grandmother being persecuted.
And her closing argument, I read the transcript of this, and it sounds like a Hallmark card written by a psychopath.
It was absolutely bizarre. She told the jury, I'm all about love. I love people. I love children. She ignored the GTAX data, the texts, the dead bodies. She just kept repeating the word love.
How long did the jury deliberate?
Less than 30 minutes.
Wow.
It takes longer to order a pizza. They walked in, took a vote, and walked right back out. Guilty.
And then the cherry on top of this entire Sunday of insanity. After all the verdicts, in late 2025, she does a media interview from prison with Dateline.
This is the glimpse into the mind that refuses to break. She sits there in her prison jumpsuit, and she tells the interviewer that she believes she is going to be exonerated by a higher power soon. And this is a real quote. She says she hopes to appear on Dancing with the Stars when she gets out.
Dancing with the Stars. She is serving multiple life sentences without parole. Her children are dead, her husbands are dead, and she's thinking about the foxtrot.
It just shows the total, complete disconnect. She is not living in our world. In her mind, she is still the exalted goddess Elena. The prison is just temporary probation. She's waiting for the portal to open and take her away.
So let's pull back. We've looked at the horror. We've looked at the system they built. What is the takeaway here? Because it's easy to just say they were crazy, but that feels too simple.
It is too simple. The takeaway for me is about the ecosystem of extremism. Chad and Lori didn't do this alone. They were supported by a community that tolerated this kind of talk.
You mean the prepper community?
A specific fringe of it, yeah. When Chad got up at those conferences and talked about zombies and dark spirits, people didn't walk out. They didn't laugh, they nodded, they took notes. The feedback loop wasn't just between Chad and Lori, it was amplified by the people around them who wanted to believe they were special too.
It's the synthesis of narcissism and fanaticism.
That's it exactly. Chad provided the theology, the why. God wants this. Lori provided the drive, the action, let's do it now. And together they stripped away the humanity of everyone around them.
And that's the mechanism of the murder. It's dehumanization.
Yes. You don't kill your son, you kill a zombie. You don't kill your wife, you remove an obstacle. Once you change the language, you change the morality.
And the victims. We have to remember them as people, not zombies. Tylee Ryan, who spent her last days protecting her little brother. J.J. Vallow, who loved his dog and his iPad. Tammy Daybell, who loved her grandkids and reading books. Charles Vallow, who tried so hard to save them all.
They were the collateral damage of two people's colossal egos. They were sacrificed on the altar of significance.
It is a heavy story, but I think the provocative thought we need to leave you with is about that ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because Chad Daybell is on death row, Lori Vallow is in prison forever, but the books are still out there. The ideas are still out there.
And that is the scary question. How many other Chads are out there right now? Sitting in a basement, writing a manifesto, claiming they hear voices from beyond the veil. They're harmless on their own, but they're just waiting.
Waiting for what?
Waiting for their Lori. Waiting for the person who doesn't just listen, but says, I believe you, now let's do something about it. Waiting for the person who strikes the match.
On that chilling note,
Yeah.
thank you for listening to this deep dive. It's been a tough one, but a really important one.
Absolutely. Stay skeptical out there.
And stay safe. We'll catch you on the next one.